Okay, welcome to another event of Startup Grind Nicosia. My name is Hess. I'm your host today, and I am really glad that you came up and showed up and joined us. And we've got my co-host Maria.
Hi.
Hi. So today we're gonna do things a bit differently. Um, we are running an online workshop for the first time, so um, we're trying different things out. We wanted to create it into a structure, but we came to the conclusion that we're going to improvise it. And because we love being natural, and startup grind is all about being flexible and comfortable. So we want to be as presenter as comfortable as possible and make you comfortable as well. So I think for the whole event, we're gonna have the slides up because we're gonna be covering a lot of materials about habit building and habit breaking, which is, as I mentioned before the event, is the fundamental skill for any kind of success in your life. Without knowing how to create habits and break habits, then basically you are running on autopilot, and you don't want to do that. You don't want your life to be ran on autopilot. So, with no further ado, let me bring up the slides so we can get started. Okay, so the title of today's event, as you registered before, is Build Good Habits. Sorry about that. Oops. Build good habits and break bad ones for your success in 2021. And I talked about it a little bit. We're Startup Grind Nicosia. And before we get started, I would like to, first of all, introduce and let you know who we are as Startup Grind. I'm going to go through it very quickly. Basically, we have around more than 600 chapters around the globe in more than 125 countries. And we have values that we run with, and we really care about them. Our first value is that we help others before helping ourselves. And we give first, we don't take, and we make friends and not contacts. So any kind of material, any kind of attitude that you see through our events is mostly around these three um, topics that I just talked about. So a bit about our sponsors. This event is sponsored by Sourx Media. Sourx Media is a digital agency that offers marketing, advertising, online marketing, online advertising, media production, SEO, and many more digital services. If you're looking to grow and scale your business online, go to www.sourxmedia.com. The link is on the screen. I mean, not now, after the event. And we've got our lovely partners, University of Nicosia Career Center, which Maria is with us. Thank you, Maria, for being here. And thank you for the rest of the people joining right now. We got Google for Startups and Youth Makerspace Larnaca. And Youth Makerspace Larnaca is a very creative place in Larnaca, which you can go for free and create whatever you want. They've got laser cutters, they've got 3D printers, they've got cameras, stages, many things. It's lovely for entrepreneurs. So if you want to get things done for free, go check it out. So right now, as you see on your screen, my name is Hess Adnani. I'm the chapter director of Startup Grind Nicosia. Also, as you see it, I've got my blog listed on the screen. We've got Maria with us. She's the chapter ambassador, and she's been helping out. And I'm really grateful to have her on stage. Maria, you want to say a couple of words?
No, okay. I'm glad we are trying something new and more people are joining, so it's cool. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah. Okay. So before we get started, I'm going to go through a little bit of summary how today's going to be, to give you a general picture of what you're going to receive today. So first of all, we need to know what habits are and why we need habits, right? So we're going to go through that criteria. Then we're going to talk about a little bit about identity building, which is a concept that has a lot of importance in the techniques that we're going to teach. We're going to understand habits and how our human brain works around habits and how we function. Then we're going to get into the mechanism of habits, which starts with triggers. Then we're going to talk about cravings. We're going to talk about responses, and we're going to talk about rewards. Then we're going to wrap it up, give you a quick summary again of what we covered, and give you some things to do next after this presentation. And I wanted to include a lot of material in this presentation, but I don't want to be an information overload. So I kept it as short as possible, and having in mind to give you as much benefit and information as possible. This topic of habit building is vast. There are a lot of people that have different systems and techniques to target this kind of habit building. But the references that we have today is from a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. So if you're interested, you can get the book and get more information in depth with much more examples and richer content. So how are we going to conduct this workshop? Basically, it's an interactive workshop. So we try to, first of all, we have like a presentation deck that we go through. We're going to have examples. The best way we think the best way of learning is by live examples. So we're going to have examples there. One thing that we want to test out is to call people on stage. You don't have to come on stage if you don't want to, but again, learning by live examples is the best method. So maybe throughout the workshop, we say, okay, we taught about this technique. Maybe you have a live example. You raise your hand. We've got icons on the chat, or you write on the chat. Maria brings you on the stage. You ask a question, you tell us your scenario, and we can actually connect the material to your live example. So we get a richer understanding. Again, you can ask any question during the event. You can just write it on chat, and Maria is going to be moderating. So she's going to bring people on stage to ask their question, or you can ask your question on chat, and we're going to answer them. You can answer other people's question if you want. It's a very relaxed environment. We decided to run voting sessions, but we canceled it last minute because we don't have voting system on Bevy. So my apologies about that. We've got absolutely no rules. Just do what feels right, right? So, and we're going to have a lot of memes and GIFs throughout the presentation. And I see that this is very slow, so you can't really see the memes well. Anyway, all this presentation deck is going to be available after the event. So I'm going to email you the deck. So let's get started. First, we're going to cover the question why we need habits. So first, I'm going to talk about the compounding compounding effect. Basically, the concept of doing 1% each day is the formula to growth. Because if you have this mentality in life that every day you just do a little bit towards an aim or a goal that you have, then that compounds into 37 times better improvement in 1 year of your life. So we have this misconception that we want big things happening in our lives, but we don't understand. We're not taught back in school that big things happen by small steps. And so as I mentioned, of daily habits, and it's not an overnight success. We're bombarded on social medias of like this guy overnight made this much money or this success and that. But the reality is, those are really fairy tales, right? If you want to be successful, then you got to get into having correct daily habits. And this is what this presentation and this event is all about. I give you an example. So back in I think 80s or 90s, the British cycling team in the world was doing really bad in Olympics. They didn't, for 110 years, they didn't even get a medal in Olympics. So they hired this guy called Bracefold. He was a coach and a supervisor of the whole team. And what he came up with was to have 1% improvement for the team and for the operation, for the bicycles and everything, for a period of time. So he didn't come up with a big plan to do something huge and make big changes. His concept was 1% improvement. So what he did, he adjusted the bicycles every day. They adjusted, let's say they tested, they changed the seat on the bicycle, they put oil on the wheels. They started like taking their bike riders to health sessions. They started giving them massages. They tried this very little changes in their team to get ready for the next Olympics, and they've done hundreds of small improvements throughout this time. So what happened is that in 2008, after 110 years of not getting a medal in Olympics, they managed to get 60% of all gold medals. And in 2019, 2012, they got 9 Olympics record and 7 world's record. And during 10 years, they got like 178 world's championships just by adjusting and doing small changes in the team. So they didn't aim for something big. So this is all about habits. Habits are stuff that you do on a daily basis to move towards something bigger, but they can be they can be a double-edged sword. So they can have benefits or they can have flaws, right? Let's say with good habits, you can move towards a very successful path, but with bad habits, slowly, you decline in your life. So you got to be careful what kind of habits you have in life to kind of have control over it. I give you some examples. Let's say some positive habits that we have is productivity. If we do one task a day, then we start kind of compounding this task and learning and getting things done. And after a while, we start automating the old task. Our brain gets free to focus on other areas, so our productivity boosts higher. In the area of knowledge, if we learn just one idea a day, then after a while, we're going to have a total different way of thinking in life. And for, let's say, relationships, if you just be nicer, a little nicer every day, then people start reflecting reflecting that back to you, and then you start noticing that you're creating stronger relationships and partnerships and all that. And some negative, let's say, compound and negative habits that can happen is stress. So let's say if you get a little bit of stress in a traffic jam, a little bit of stress out of parenting or your financials and all these things, a little bit pile up for years, and what happens, you get a serious health issue. Or that, let's say, for negative thoughts, if you start like self-criticizing every day and say, oh, I'm not good at this, I'm not this, that guy is angry at me, that guy is whatever, then after a while, you notice that you're surrounded by angry people because you find little bits of anger here and there, and you don't find way out of it. Or for outrage that we saw recently last year with the Black Lives Matters and everything, it's not about a big single event that happened that caused that. It's all compounding us, all this little long series of microaggression that happen through time, and that causes riots and protests and all that. So what is progress? One thing, the progress is the path that you take from the day that you decide you want to change something until you get to your goals. And what's the identity of this progress is that it's slow and gradual. So this is the first let's say thing that you notice with progress. You cannot expect progress to be fast and quick and overnight success. And I'm sorry about that. When you go through progress, at the beginning is really slow and gradual. You don't see results at all, but there is a threshold that breakthrough moments happen. And if you survive the beginning of your progress towards something successful, then you will get to that breakthrough moment and see the actual result, even more than what you expected. But there's always, before that threshold, there's a value of disappointment, which a lot of people give up, and it's also called value of death. I give you a little example about the degree that ice melts. So if you have an ice in a freezer and you take it out and you take it in an environment which is negative degrees, and you start gradually increase the temperature by 1 degree, and if you do it one by one until you reach the 0 degree, 1 degree shift, the ice melts. That's your threshold, critical threshold, which breaks through something that you're doing. So again, if you have any questions and stuff right now, we are more than happy to answer. If you have any breakthroughs or anything, let us know. Maria, is there anything? Should we pause or should we continue?
Not yet.
Not yet. All right. So let me ask this question from the audience, and you can write your answer in the chat, and we're gonna make it interactive. So have you had any moments for the past 1 year that you tried something and you gave up because of the value of disappointment? And the value of disappointment, I can show you a diagram. This right here is I cannot really see it. Okay, this right here is the value of disappointment. So from here, when you get started, everything is going really gradual and slow. And this is where a lot of people give up because their expectation is much higher. So what they think is going to happen is this yellow orangey line. But what really happens is like that, and you just have to keep repeating and repeating until you break through. But you notice after when you break through, the results are much bigger than you expected. So in a chat, if you had any moments that you went through the valley of disappointment, write it and share it with other people. So also, I want to relate it to the diagram before. We have another diagram which is more related to startups and businesses. This is the development curve of startups. And if you see, there is a similarity between the previous graph and this graph, because when you get started, everything is downhill, everything is slow and gradual. So as you see it here, everything just, you go down through the valley of death. This is at this point that I'm pointing right now. I'm not sure if you see it. This is your product launch. And everyone thinks like after product launch is going to be all uphill. We're going to do a lot of sales. We're going to do great stuff. But what happens is this valley of death, and a lot of startups die here. But what to understand is you need to survive this valley of death and keep repeating, keep trying new things until you get to a success in your business. So I want to talk about goals versus systems. So as goals, if we want to give a definition to goals, is the vision of a future result. But what I want to add here is that successful and unsuccessful people both have one thing in common. Both of them, they've got goals. You cannot define success by goals. This is something that we need to understand. And goals are just momentarily changes. Let's say if you want to clean your room right now, you create a goal in your head and you say, okay, I want to clean my room, and you go clean it. But what happens is that because you're not using systems, Yes, your house gets clean, your room gets clean right now, but it gets dirty and it gets out of control after because you're not following any kind of systems. So next is that goals make you unhappy. If you care too much about goals, you get into this mentality called goal first mentality. And what it does is that it focuses too much on the goals, and your brain kind of sets happiness way in the future. So you're telling yourself, okay, um, I'm going to be happy when I get this kind of result, and you postpone your happiness to the future. And because the beginning of the process is really difficult, you'll get disappointed, and you get eventually really unhappy. So what the system suggests is that you set goals once and you leave it. You don't get obsessed with it. You don't care about goals after that. You say, okay, this, and you finish. And I want to talk about systems. System is actually the vehicle that gets you there, is how you get there. And what you really need to do is to focus on systems instead of goals, because goals makes you unhappy. It's not scalable. It's not something that you want to keep in mind. But if you focus on systems, and if you manage to fall in love with the system, then the whole game changes. Everything changes with your life. So goals basically are there for winning the game, but systems are there to continue the games and keep winning. So that's what happens with goals and systems. We're going to get into it more in depth. The next section we want to go to is identity building, and this is my favorite method. And I want to emphasize again, if you have any questions, if you have any life stories, anything, shared in the chat, and would love to interact and bring it up. Maria, is there anything? Not yet. Maria, do you have any kind of stories related to the content that we talked about?
More for systems, but let's go maybe in depth, and I share mine and how I do every day and add a little bit.
Okay, that sounds good. We're going to move on to identity building. Okay, so I want to talk about the 3 layers of behavioral change. When you're facing a change in your life, you have 3 layers that usually you try to overcome. There's the outcome layer, which is you're trying to change the result, meaning your goals. You've got the process, which you try to change your habits and your systems, how to get there. And then you've got identity, which is the belief that you have towards that goal. But when we're changing habits, there's several things that we do wrong. First of all, we try to do the wrong thing, and then we try to change the wrong thing, and then what happens is that we try to change it in the wrong way. So next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I mean. So we've got 2 kind of ways to tackle habits. One is called outcome-based habits, and one is called identity-based. What we usually do is we try to change our habits by changing what we want to achieve. So it happens every now and then that we say, okay, I'm setting this goal that I'm going to be healthy, right? I'm going to be healthy, and I'm going to have this diet and become healthy. So what happens is that first we focus on goals, then we try to go through this habits, changing our habits and stuff in order to become a healthy person. But what really works, this system doesn't work. What really works is that you have to start from the core of your habits. So basically, in order to make changes in your life, first you need to change your identity. This is very, very important. So what we tried, let's say, I give you some examples for the outcome-based habits, which is the way that doesn't work. We try to become skinny, which is the outcome, by let's say sticking with a diet, which is a process. And what happens is that our old identity, which we're not trying to change, will sabotage our process. It will break our process and we'll never get there. I'll give you another one. Let's say we try to make more money. This is the outcome. And then we've got this identity that we're someone that we consume instead of create, and change never happens because our identity is not aligned with what we want to do. So for identity, what we do is, first of all, we say, okay, what kind of person do I want to become? And what does this person do in life? So basically, in order to say I want to make more money, you say, okay, I am rich right now. I am rich. What does a rich person do, which is your process? And then you get to your outcome, which is making money. So you got to shift. You got to go reverse. You got to go reverse engineer from deep within. So I give you some more example. The goal is not to read a book. The goal is to become a reader. The goal is not to run a marathon. The goal is become a runner. The goal is not to learn instrument. The goal is become musicians. So if you notice here, if you have if you set a goal that you want to read a book, right? Then there's a lot of disappointments because every day you're like, okay, I'm not reading. I haven't read the book yet. I haven't read the book yet. I haven't read the book yet. But if you just say I'm a reader, and if you read 1 page, 2 pages, 10 pages, whatever, then you keep the process going, and nothing will sabotage that. You will not self-criticize to sabotage what you're doing. And after a while, by repetition, when you keep saying your identity and do stuff that reflects back to your identity, then you become the identity. Slowly, you tell the story for years. You tell yourself the story years, and then it's just we slide into this mental groove and accept it as a fact that this is who we are. So what you need to do is to say who I am first instead of say what I want to do. So how do you change your identity? Paso uno, step 1, you decide who you want to be. So you kind of work backward. Who is the type of person that get the result that I want to get? Who is the person that could run, let's say, a successful startup? You want to run a successful startup, you work it backward, you find out who the person is that can actually run a startup, and you become that person. So segundo paso, step 2, prove it to yourself in small wins. So as soon as you start acting as that identity, then you start making sure that you have small wins. You don't want to have 1 win in 6 months. You want to have small wins every day. So as let's say if you want to read more, then you make an identity of a reader, and then even if you read a page a day, you're still a reader. So you have small wins. Paso tres, step 3 is win majority of times. It's okay to lose sometimes, but win majority of time. And paso cuatro, step 4, well, there's no paso cuatro. We've got tequila. So let's end this section by saying your habits shape your identity, and your identity shape your habit. It's a two-way street. Let's go deep into habits now that we know what they're for, what is identity, and all that. So up to now, any questions, Maria? Okay.
Muted myself. Maria has a question. Let me try to make her a host, right?
Yeah.
Presenter mode.
Maria, we're bringing you up.
Hi, everyone. You hear me?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi, good evening. Good day. Anyway, thank you so much. That's really very exciting. I'm excited to be here. Good to see you, everybody. So my question was, you said earlier that, for example, regarding reading, if someone wants to read a book, so the goal shouldn't be read a book, but the goal should be become a reader, right? So
Yes.
change that a little bit, change the identity. My question is actually, how would you convince someone's self, or for example, how do I convince myself that I am a reader? If I have to convince me mentally to become that. Yes.
Yes. So in order to actually, you don't convince yourself. You don't try to. If you try to do that, then you're just fooling yourself. That's not how the game goes. We're going to cover the materials a bit after, but what it is repetition.
Okay.
And you want to, I will there are slides that I'm going to say how to get started and all that. So there are ways that you do very small actions per day, but you keep doing it. This if you have to keep it regular.
All right.
If you keep it regular, then your brain slowly believes on itself that you are a reader.
Yes.
In the first place, you decided to do it for a reason, right? For some reason. Maybe you want to upgrade yourself, and then you say, okay, in order to do this, I have to start reading. And then it's your initial motivation is first one, and then following this, you create habits to follow up, because it's not that easy to say, okay, I'm gonna introduce 1 hour of the books per day.
Exactly. That was my question. Okay, thanks so much.
No problem. Thank you for coming up.
Sure.
Guys, see, it's not that scary. Come up, ask a question. All right, so moving on. What are habits? So basically, us as human beings, we have this behavior, which is a feedback loop, that we try something, we fail, we learn from it, we try differently, and it's just this loop goes on and on. And what happens through this process is that our brain eliminates the useless, and then it only reinforces the useful actions. So this is how you kind of learn and repeat and go through the feedback loop. So habits are memory maps. What happens is that once your brain goes through this feedback loop to solve something in the past, if you manage to solve a little bit of it or all of it, that becomes a memory habit in your brain, and that's what memory map in your brain, and that's what habits are. Is your way of your brain keeping records of what worked and what not worked. And then, like, when we hear habits, we feel restricted, because we tried it so many times. We tried what other people do. We try to force habits and all that, and we usually feel that it restricts our freedom. But this is actually the opposite. If you know how to correctly create habits, it gives you freedom, right? I give you an example right here about freedom. So let's say if you, without a good financial habits, what happens to you is that every month you're gonna struggle for the next dollar. So you're gonna struggle with your bills and all that, and then you get forced into making decisions or hard decisions, and you're forced into stuff, and then this confusion and this mess creates less freedom for you. But if you have a right, let's say, financial habits, then everything is kind of automatic. So what happens is that, let me go next one. What happens is that with this correct habit system, you open up, you reduce cognitive load, and then you open up mental capacity for thinking and creativity. Basically, yeah, you can't really see the gifts, but it's yeah. So don't get this wrong. Habits are very good for you. They can create a lot of mental space for you. So how does habits work? There is a process that habits gets initiated, created, and then gets repeated. So first thing in a habit loop is the trigger. Is a bit of information in your brain that predicts there's going to be a reward in the future. This little trigger can be inwards or can be outwards. This can be something that you feel inside, or it can be something that you see outside. So this is what starts the cycle. The second step of that is craving. So basically, your brain creates this motivational force to change an internal state. So you kind of get this craving that you want to do something, and so these cravings, without motivation and cravings, we're not going to do anything. Basically, we don't have a desire to do anything. We don't act on anything. So this step of the habit cycle is very important. The next step is the response. Is actually performing the habits. It's the action that we take, and this action is really depending on how motivated we are and how much friction is in the way, how difficult the task is. And the last step of habit building, habit loop is reward, is when we get the end result, is the satisfying of step 2, which is craving. Is this, at this level, basically our brain captures this pleasure or disappointment at the same time when it's a negative, when it's about breaking bad habits. It remembers this pleasure or disappointment so that it creates triggers and craving in the future for it. This loop is really useful for us because it kind of takes a lot of load off our brain. If we wanted to, it's the best way to learn, because we understand what gives result, what's useful, what's not, and this is exactly what we need to be cognitively growing. So this graph exactly shows how it is. So we've got the trigger, then it goes to craving. Craving does respond, and then respond brings you reward, and then it goes through the loop again and again. So with the correct system and training, we can eliminate or initiate any kind of habit loops. And this is what we are today. This is what I want you to understand, that with habits and with trainings, we can change the habits. So I'm going to go through all 4 steps, which is the main part of this presentation. And the first step is the triggers. So what are triggers? Our brain is a prediction machine. As I mentioned in the previous section, our brain is always looking for clues around our surrounding or internally to predict a reward. This is what this step is all about. And a lot of these things happen without us being aware. We're not even aware of it. Let's say if for smokers, I'm going to talk both about negative and positive habits and building and breaking habits as well. So for, let's say, smokers, you don't even realize the trigger that makes you smoke, and that happens automatically. And it's sometimes is very useful not to be aware, because it frees up a lot of our attention, so we can pay this attention to other things in our lives. And if you want to change, if you want to start correcting habits or building or initiating or eliminating, first thing before anything else, we need to understand what current habits we have right now. What is happening right now before we start introducing new things in our life. And the first thing to do that is to make the unconscious conscious. Basically, because most of these triggers are we're not aware of these triggers, then we need to be aware of it, see what we're doing. And I'm going to say 2 techniques that you can use in order to notice it. One thing is pointing and calling techniques. Basically, throughout your day, whenever you're about to do something, you just say it out loud and you point at it. I'm picking up this phone. I'm picking up this thing. I am standing up. I am doing this. So this technique is called pointing and calling. And I give you an example how useful these things are. As simple as it is, it's very useful. So they had, back in the time when they were running trains back in Tokyo, there was a lot of failures, errors, accidents happening. So they wanted to find out a way to fix this. And what they suggested is the pointing and calling technique. So what they've done is all the crew members within the train, they started saying anything that they were about to do, they start saying it loud. Like, all abroad, all set, moving the train, slowing down. They just started saying like everything loud, right? And what happened is that they reduced error by 85%. And what happened is the accidents decreased by 30% just by saying what they're doing. Because like when we start practicing pointing and calling technique, we use our eyes, hand, mouth, ears, and we notice if something is wrong because we use other sensory part of our body to be more aware. So a lot of failures happen from lack of awareness. So this is something that that helps you to be aware of many things that you do in life, and you can use this technique in this other technique that I'm showing you. So basically, it's called habit scorecard. And what you do, you track down everything you do for a couple of days. You start saying out loud what you're doing so you're aware of it. As soon as you're aware of what you're doing, you track it down on your day. And what you do, you at the end of each day, you have your list in front of you and you mark plus, minus, and equal next to each of the actions that you've done. Plus for constructive, negative for destructive, and neutral, the equal for neutral. And let's say if sometimes if you have difficulty marking the habit, if you don't know if it's constructive or destructive, then you can ask the question, does this behavior help me to become the person or the identity that I want to be? And if that does not align with the identity that we talked about in previous sections, then it is destructive, and you mark it. And the thing is, here we're not here to blame ourselves if we do something wrong, or at the same time we're not here to praise ourselves. We're here just to observe, just to see what we're doing on daily basis. So this is an example of the list. Sorry, let me go back real quick. This example that you can do, you can say, okay, in the morning I've done this. You mark it minus, plus, equal, whatever. You did afternoon, you did this. At night, you did this. And after 2 days, you realize, oh my God, there are things that I'm not even aware of and I'm doing it. And why the hell am I doing it? Why am I spending time and putting myself to do these kind of things that it's not necessary? And the thing that another technique that I'm going to introduce here about triggers is called habits stacking. So what misconception that we have usually is that we don't lack motivation, we lack clarity. So we usually say like, oh my God, I didn't achieve what I wanted to achieve because I don't have the motivation for it or whatever. It's not. It's the system you're using. Is the triggers that are not starting what you want to start. It's not your motivation, because motivation is the second step. Is the triggers. It's to just reminding yourself to do something. So habit stacking is when you do situation, let's say you do action X after when you've done action Y. And I give you an example. So let's say when you make, you should be making plans beforehand when you want to introduce a new habit or breaking an old habit in your life. And what you usually can do is you can make a plan and connect a time and location to a new habit. That takes you to a whole new level, because if you say, when I enter kitchen, I'm gonna, let's say, clean the counter, let's say. That connects entering kitchen with cleaning counter, so that in your brain creates a trigger. And if you do it, if you repeat it good amount of times, as soon as you enter the kitchen, you're going to clean the counter because it's there. It's a trigger. Another thing you can do, you can connect another habit with a new habit. So let's say this is here from the one habit to. So what you can do is, let's say, if as soon as I don't know, as soon as I take my phone out of my pocket, I will send one nice message to someone. So you take what you already doing and you connect a new habit to it. Let's say in comparison to the fact that you just want to introduce something very new without even planning where you're going to fit it in life. So this is called habit stacking. I'll give you some examples. Exercise. When I see set of stairs, I'll take them instead of using elevator. Social skills. When I walk into a party, I will introduce myself to someone I don't know. Then we have finances. When I want to buy something over $100, then I will wait for 24 hours before purchasing. Eating healthy. When I serve myself a meal, I will always put veggies on my plate first. Minimalism. When I buy a new item, I will give away one. So one in, one out. Mood. When the phone rings, I'll take a deep breath, smile, and then answer the phone. So you kind of take that and you put it before, in the middle of the usual task that you do. Forgetfulness. When I leave public places, I will check the table, chairs to make sure I don't leave anything behind. I do that personally because I forget everything.
All
So what I
every time.
Every time, yeah. What I do is basically I have this habit that I'm gonna tap both of my pockets and my back pocket. So I do 3 taps, and if any of those pockets are empty, then that means either I left my keys or wallet or my phone, because wallet is on my back, phone is on my right side, and the keys on my left. So I haven't forget my phone, wallet, and keys for maybe 8 years. That's how
It works great. I had a boss. He used to do 5 things. He would do every time he would leave the space. He would do. And I said, "What is that?" Phone, keys, wallet, and it was 5 things that he always would take, and it was a habit. He never moved.
it habit. So it's not because you're forgetful, it's because you don't know the system. Like you haven't made a system for yourself. So instead of blaming yourself, oh my God, I'm such a forgetful person, and start self-criticizing, just do that and do it so many times, and then without knowing it, you have it set into your brain. The next point I want to talk to you about within triggers is environment, and I'm paying a lot of attention, and I made a lot of contents about triggers because this is the first entry point into your habits, and you need to have your triggers understood and settled down. So your environment, what you do is people mostly, let's say, do what is in front of them, right? So it happens a lot of times. This is what happens. It's like you have your phone in front of you, and without even knowing how and why, you just take it to check if you have new emails or you have new notifications because it's right in front of your face. And like the same thing happens with, let's say, shopping. People usually choose products not because what they are, but because where they are in the shop. And impulsive buying, the concept of impulsive buying is when people don't choose because of what they want, but because how they're presented, how things are put in front of them. So your environment plays a huge role in your habit building, and especially on triggers. And I wrote half of the brain resources are used at vision. That is the reason, because let's say within our body we've got 11 million sensory receptors, right? And guess what? 10% of those are just dedicated to sight. So 10% of your brain is always working on sight. So no matter, so this is not surprising when you've got triggers by things in front of you. So in order to create good habits that you want to do, you just have to make them visible in your environment. Like, let's say there's an example of someone that wants to learn how to play guitar and wants to practice every day. The first step, the best step, and what's going to get him there is to bring his guitar from his bedroom to his living room. So as soon as he sits down, he sees the guitar and he remembers and he plays it, right? Negative also, we can talk about something negative. Let's say same guy that wants to learn guitar, he sees himself watching TV instead. So what he does, he just hides the remote control or moves the TV to another room. So you have no other option. So he sits, he wants to relax in his living room. He sees the guitar, not the TV. And the thing is, sometimes with the places that we are currently in, it's much more difficult to create new habits because we already connected other habits to the place that we usually go. So what we suggest to do for people that want to have new habits is go to a new location. Because when you go to a new place, you start creating new routines to that place. So as any time that you go to that place is for that routine. And okay, now that we're in a lockdown, we're locked in the house and we can't really move around. What do we do in the house when we live? Well, break it down into zones. Have your living room, bedroom, or even if you have a very small place, divide your living room in 4 zones. Have your couch one zone, have your dining table one zone, kitchen one zone, and other places another zone, and attach a routine in each zone, and you will see the difference. What happens? So we've got in the zone. This was triggers. We move to cravings, which is the motivational force of starting any kind of behaviors. What are triggers? Basically, attractive opportunities become habit forming. So stuff that are attractive, they tend to become habits more often. In our society, we've got engineered versions of reality that is far more attractive than what the reality of our ancestors were. We've got social media that we get more likes and praise in few minutes that we ever could get in our home and office. We've got, let's say, online porn that you get so much, let's say, attractiveness, opportunity in such a short amount of time that you never get it in reality. Or we've got the same examples that you've got in advertising. Everything is shaped so attractive that you want to buy it. You've got food commercials, that you've got sugar. The amount of sugar that we consume was never even imagined by our ancestors. So these are the cravings, and there's so many more in our society that's happening. So what happens is that attractiveness to our brain, or our physical attractiveness, whatever, releases dopamine, and this is a pleasure chemical in our brain. And what dopamine does is it brings pleasure, so that the action, the behavior gets repeated again and again. And let me tell you this: it's not the pleasure that we get attracted to, is the anticipation of the pleasure that releases the dopamine. Is thinking of the pleasure that we're going to get. That's when the dopamine is released, and that's when a behavior is started. So I have a graph for you on the right side, and we've got scenario A, B, C, D. And on the top, you can see cue, craving, response, and reward. Basically, trigger, craving, response, and reward. So in the situation A, what happens is that something really pleasurable happens out of nowhere for the first time, and you feel the dopamine right at the time that is happening. So the dopamine is released at the reward stage. And then what happens is that we see this trigger that remind us about what happened, what pleasure we had before in the scenario B. So the dopamine level is released at the craving stage. As soon as we had the trigger, then our brain releases dopamine, and that gets us to do something. But let's say in situation B, we kind of we don't achieve the let's say the reward that we want to see. Now, if we look at situation C, is that yes, the release of dopamine happens when we think about, or when we get triggered, but it gets delayed. And what happens is dopamine drops. So that's a disappointment stage within our brain. That's something that we want is not happening, like a spoiled kid. So there's a dopamine shortage. And then the brain slowly adjusts itself to the situation D, which is a full, let's say, cycle of habits. Basically, at the craving, the brain releases dopamine. There is a delay of the reward, so we get a drop in the dopamine, but then we get the reward after that, which increases it. And what happens is that our brain says, oh, see, I was right. I was right that we're going to get this reward. So we get this dopamine and do it again. Next time, do it again. This is the reward. This is pleasure. Do it again. And then we go through this dopamine releasing cycle over and over again. And that's how we are stuck in social medias. That's how we're stuck, because we're through this cycle of dopamine release, that we hear a notification, which is a trigger. We feel the craving. We open the app. First, we get disappointed because it wasn't a big deal. But again, our brain says, hold on, no. Since that I've done that, this was a good action that I've done. So there's your dopamine to do it again. Because our brain never wants to be wrong. I want to talk to you about temptation bundling, which is again related to cravings. Basically, you can use this to your advantage if you want to create a habit in your life. So you can link an action you want to do to an action that needs to be done, right? I give you an example. Let's say if you really don't, if let's say one of us really don't want to go through all of our emails, overdue emails for work, but as soon as we finish going through them, we go home and have fun. That having fun later on pushes us to do the emails and finish them. So this is temptation bundling, doing something unattractive when the attractiveness of something conditional after has more reward, and we do it. It's basically a Premax principle. That's a principle called.
Or sometimes, sometimes when you do your task for a day for work, I give you a little break. You know, when you have a to-do list, and then you have all the things that you like, and then all the things that you really don't like, and you try to procrastinate them. You build them the way that you first do the things that you don't like, so you're looking forward to do the things that you like, and it's very difficult to make yourself to do that. And it actually has the same principle. You are looking forward to that. It works.
Exactly.
What for me, I use it all the time. So I really want to do something, but I put it behind. So I do the things that I don't like, and then it kind of makes my day very balanced. And
it's all about tricking our brain, because a lot of our brain functions are, automatic. So we have to take control back. We have to manipulate our brain to do some stuff that doesn't want to do, right?
I have Brandon here. Sorry, and he's asking, is it similar to like the Pomodoro effect? Brandon, do you want to get into discussion? Can we have a discussion here? Because I think it's interesting also to, I don't know, to share some things that we do, or each of us does. Brandon? I don't know what is Pomodoro effect, for example.
One sec. So let me finish the slide before we bring Brandon up. I'll give you another example of temptation bundling. Let's say you can say you want to check Instagram. After I pull out my phone, then I will do 10 push-ups, which is the need if you want to get in shape. Then after I do 10 push-ups, I will check my Instagram. And if you repeat this so many times, it happens automatically. You don't even think about it. So yes, for the first 100 repetitions or 50 repetitions, it's going to be a bit forceful, but as soon as you create these bundles, it happens like magic. So Brandon?
Well, let me try to make you.
Bring it up. We might have his voice, okay. So we might get his voice.
I am bringing you in. 1 second, because I don't know what's Pomodoro effect. Hi, Brandon.
Let's see if we hear you. Brandon, no? No. 3, 2, 1. Brandon, don't let us down. Okay. Well, Brandon, write the what do you call it? The Pomodoro effect.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you go.
All right, there we go. Awesome.
Okay.
Hey guys. Hey. So real quick, just chiming in. So I love, I've only been watching about 10 minutes, so I apologize for the late reply, but love the concepts. So the Pomodoro effect is basically where you have a physical timer, and you can do 25-minute increments, 10-minute increments. And the idea is that the same concept that you talked about, where you have this anticipation to develop a habit. So one thing that has helped me, this Pomodoro effect is basically you split your task up into 25-minute increments or 10-minute increments, such that it's you're making the habit easier, right? Rather than doing the task completely. Let's say it takes an hour and a half. You split it up into 25-minute increments, such that, let's say you 100% focus for 25 minutes, the bell goes off, and then you do something that's a little bit more fun or anticipating. And then you go back and you do another 25 minutes of intense focus. And at least for me, what it's helped with is getting more done with my time, because it's more effective. And I know in 25 minutes, I'll do something more enjoyable than, say,
Brandon, I think this concept, it is a bit related to cravings, but I think is mostly related to the reward. So what happens here basically is 25 minutes. When the bell rings, it's kind of like a mini reward for you, that, oh, you finished up your 25 minutes. This is your dopamine rush.
right.
You go do whatever. So this, let's say instead of having one reward after 1 hour, you have 4 rewards. Sorry, my math is off, but you've got more rewards than one, right?
Got it. Makes sense. Right. Awesome. Good stuff. Thanks, guys.
It's all right. Moving on. Thank you, Brandon. Then let's talk about cultural habits. What happens is that we really don't choose our habits. Is imitated to us. We imitated them. We got it from the close family and friends. We got our habits, most of our habits, from the tribe, the many, the close, and the power, the ones that we see as high status and prestige. Okay, so the effect of this is that we kind of got these habits by peer pressure. We got it from our family, we got it from tribe, because many people done it and all that. And we can use that to our advantage, okay? So what we can do is we can go to a group of people or join a culture that your desired behavior is a normal behavior. You hear it all the time from other people. If you want to get rich, hang out with rich people, right? Because what's happened is when you hang out with them, you get this peer pressure of the habits that they do. And because you want to get, let's say, you want to be accepted, then you start applying those habits in your life. And what happens? Small increments, 1% of your life, 1% changes, sorry. And then you find yourself in a better financial situation than before, right? So, and then we've got join cultures which you have something in common as well. So let's say if you want to, that's where the AA groups come in. Like if a group of people want to quit alcohol, right? When they get together in a cultural group, it happens much better, because you get this peer pressure from other people that everyone else is doing it. Everyone else is doing what I'm doing, so I'm going to fall behind. So I have here in my notes that says reward of being accepted is often greater than the reward of winning an argument or looking smart or finding truth. So we can use this thing that we have, we think is a weakness, but we can use it into our advantage to use being accepted by other people to actually create habits that change our life. Beautiful. All right, habits are hard. Habits are really hard. So instead of, like, when you're targeting habits, instead of saying that you have to do it, you say you get to do it, right? So if you see habits as task and work to be done, especially the habits that you really want to achieve in your life, then is a have to. But if you do it enough times, the burden turns into an opportunity. And if you have good vision of what you're doing and not see it as burdens, but see it as opportunities, then things started to change and things start getting easier. So let's say instead of saying you have to wake up early in the morning, you say you get to wake up early in the morning. Instead of saying that you have to make another sales call, you say you get to make another sales call. Or you, instead of, if you want to be healthy and eat at home, if you say, oh my God, I have to cook my food at home, then you says, yes, I've got a kitchen, I get to cook that for myself. You turn that upside down and you start enjoying the habits instead of complaining, right? That's why if you hear out there from many successful entrepreneurs, what they say is like, follow your passion. Because when you follow your passion and if you want to be successful in the area that you like and you're passionate about, then you can create enjoyment for the habits that you're doing during the process to get to your goals. This is where it comes from, because that's very important. And then you can do a trick that is very useful. It's called ritual, motivational ritual. Basically, before starting a hard habit, you create a ritual for yourself. I'll give you an example, and I'll give you an example of my own as well. So this guy, let's say Mr. X, wants to focus on work and be really productive. So what he does is he buys a really nice headphone or whatever, and every time that he knows he's going to go into deep focus in work, he puts the headphones on and he works. And then after a while, when this repetition happens enough of times, anytime that you put headphones on your ears, then you're immediately going to be pushed into to be focused on your work. I'll give you another example. The sex songs. So if you pick a song and you play it before every time you want to have sex, then after a while, with enough repetition, anytime that you put that song on, you immediately get turned on. It's called the sex song. All right, so let's go to the third phase of habit, which is response, is the action that happens there. So performing a new habit. This is back when Maria asked about how to get a habit in your life. So this is very important. If you have a good understanding of what the steps were, the number 1 and number 2, this is where things started to happening and click. So first I want to go through Hebb's law, which neurons in our brain fire together. When they fire together, they wire together. Okay, this is what happens in our brain when we start doing stuff. So there's another concept called long-term potentiation. Basically, you create brain patterns, and how brain patterns get created is when your neurons start linking together. And how does your neurons get linked together? Repetition, right? So instead of perfecting something, just do enough repetition. If you're that's again, the perfectionism is really connected to goal setting. When you set a goal, I want to be blah blah blah, then you become a perfectionist towards that goal. So what I suggested before in our presentation was to focus more on the system and the progress. The system of progress is the repetition. So when you do enough repetition, the neurons in your brain start linking together, and that becomes a habit. That becomes your identity as well. And you hear it all the time. I've heard it before I get into this concept. I heard it many times that if you do something for 21 days, the habit stays with you. Habit building it starts in 30 days or whatever. Let me tell you this. It doesn't matter if you do it for 21 days, if you do it for 30 days, if you do it for 1 year. The time doesn't matter. It's the number of repetition. Okay? Because the more you repeat something, the more neural links you create in your brain, and the more the habit sticks with you. So repetition is the key. And I have this graph on the screen, which is the habit line. And you see A, B, C, repetition versus automation. So if you keep doing the same thing that you're doing for enough number of times, then it becomes automatic. If you pass that line of habit line, then it becomes automatic. If you want to, if you read a page every night or during the day, if you read one page, then after a while, you find yourself automatically drawn to read a page a day, or even you can increase it. And yeah, so repetition. This is the secret. Next up is the least effort. We usually get gravitated towards things that are, easy and take less amount of time, right? We love easy stuff, overnight success or get rich quick or all that stuff that are the schemes that are going out there. We love them. That's why their market is so vast. We like, take this pill and you'll be healthy. Take this pill, do this, and you lose 10 pounds in 2 days. Like this our brain loves it, and it's the best marketing techniques for some companies. And what happens with hard habits is that there is a friction between where you are and where you want to be, the desired state. That's why the habit is hard, because the friction is much higher than easier habits. And that's why you usually find you get demotivated of doing stuff, because it's too hard to do. Okay, you need to understand, you have this understanding about your brain, that this is what the brain likes. So what you do, you try to reduce, for the habits that you want to do, you try to reduce friction as much as you can. You try to make it easy as much as you can. One of the best ways to do it is just to implement it in your flow of life. So do not introduce a radical change in your life, because that would never happen. It needs to blend into your life. And if you look at habit building products, you see that they actually reduce friction in life, and that's why they are very popular. So what you can do is that you can adjust your environment to make things happen easier in the future. And at the same time, if you want to break a bad habit cycle, you can actually make it harder to do. I'll give you an example. Let's say if someone wants to quit smoking, right? Someone doesn't want to smoke anymore. Easy step that they can do that's going to help them a lot is that they can leave their packet of cigarette in their car, in their parking, 3 stores down, right? So every time that they want to smoke, they have to go all the way down to the parking, get a smoke from the car. Maybe it's a cold winter and things are not pleasant. They have to smoke there and come back up. And what happens is that when the brain says, okay, I need to smoke, then at the same time, like, oh shit, I need to go to the parking and take the smoke and do that. Maybe a bit later, right? Maybe a bit later. And that breaks bad habits. Make it harder. Make it easier. Put the guitar, if you want to learn guitar, put it in your house. In your living room so you see it. It's one step away to play guitar. Just reach your hand and reach it and pick it up and play. So yeah, easy. And then I want to introduce you to the 2-minute rule, which is really related to what we talked about. So when you start with a new habit, the starting point of it needs to take less than 2 minutes, whatever you want to start, right? I give you an example. Let's say if you want to go to the gym, your 2-minute rule is get to the cab, to the taxi, right? Because it takes only 2 minutes to get a taxi. And once you're in the taxi, it's too late. You're already in the process of it. So that's 2-minute rule. Sorry, I get too excited, hit the microphone. So this is why you hear out there on social media, show up. They say show up for your passion. Show up, show up. It's true. Show up, meaning start the process, which takes only 2 minutes to start, right? They have to, like, if you want to, let's say, again, I told you, if you want to be a reader, you got to start, first you got to create the habit in your brain, then you need to improve it. So this is what is called gateway habits. So I give you some examples of the gateway habits. Let's say instead of read before, if your goal or if what you want to do is read before bed each night, your gateway habit is read one page, because one page takes less than 2 minutes. Start with that and make that a habit, and then improve it into some bigger results. The second one is do 30 minutes of yoga every day. Well, what about just taking your yoga mat out for 7 days and that's it? Take your yoga mats out, lie on top of it, and put it back in. Do that for 7-10 days. If you want to study for class, just open up your notes instead. Every day at a certain time, again, remember the previous slides that we said, time and location. When I'm home at 3 p.m., I'm going to open up my notes. And you turn that into a habit. And after a while, because things get boring and it becomes a habit and things get boring, you're like, why not to read a couple of pages and study, you know? Fold the laundry. Well, why not start folding one pair of socks, huh? Run 3 miles, tie your running shoes. That's your gateway habit. I've got a beautiful table for you right here. Meditate for, if you want to meditate 2 minutes every day. If you want to run, put your running shoes on. If you want to write a book, which is the end goal on all the way to the right, start with write one sentence. And then one sentence is the one paragraph into 1,000 words, 5,000 words articles, and then you start writing your book. Study, open up your notes. If you want to wake up 6 a.m. every day, the first step to do it is be home by 10 p.m. every night. And then what you do, next step, when that becomes a habit, then you start turning off all the devices by 10 p.m. And then when that becomes a habit, then you go lie in your bed, but you have the lights open. Then that happens, then you turn off the lights at 10 p.m. And then when that happens, you sleep at 10 p.m. So you wake up every morning, 6 a.m., right? We've done it. We put alarm. We try to force ourselves to wake up 6 a.m. when the night before we slept at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., whatever, partying, right? That's not the way. It doesn't stick with us. All right, then last cycle, it took much more than I expected, but I'm going really deep. And from the attendees, right, no one left. So I think people are enjoying it. So Maria, anything coming up?
Yeah, we mentioned the book, but you're gonna mention it as well. Brandon mentioned the book that you were using.
The book, yeah, I'm gonna mention. We have a last slide. I'm gonna give you 3 books to read.
We're just following your conversation with some comments. It's cool.
All right. So Maria, do you have anything recently that you want to do in life? Any habits? We don't have your voice. Nope, no voice.
Because I am not.
Yeah, go ahead. Now I can hear you.
I have everyday habits, like small ones that I keep, and they help me to kind of, stay where I am. I mentioned the work, where I prioritize the tasks. Or for example, when I wake up, I do my bed. It's like an everyday thing, right? So I start my day with something already finished, and then it gives you some kind of pushback. And then I try to adapt different things depending on what I'm doing. But yes, it's the habits that you bring every day, you enforce them for whatever motivation you have. I think they work and they you benefit on them.
Excellent. I'm doing something similar as well. Like usually I suck at washing dishes. I hate it. So what I started to do is as soon as I finish eating, I connected washing just the dishes that I use to eat my food, which is like fork and knife, a dish and a glass, or maybe another plate extra. Wash that, which takes less than 2 minutes. And what I realized is that at night, when I want to go wash dishes, it's just few of them. And if that finishes in like 5 minutes, so I don't hate it anymore. I do it every night because it just takes 5 minutes, right? It's not like a 15, 20 minutes dishwashing. Right. Moving to rewards. Pleasure and rewards. So what's rewarded is repeated and what's punished is avoided. And basically, pleasure teaches your brain to do it again. That was nice. That was really good. Do it again. And then this, basically this, the reward, the last stage of the habit building is actually what creates the repetition of the habits. So we have two kind of rewards. One is called immediate return, which happens immediate return, and there's another one called delayed return. And it's easy to understand. It's immediate return is when something you get rewarded right away when you do something, and delayed return is when you get rewarded much later. And usually most of the goals that we have is delayed return. That's why it doesn't stick with us. So let's say our goal is, again, going back to the reader, is to become to read a book. Until the book finishes, then that takes too much time, and then you lose your traction. But immediate return could be read a page. It finishes, you immediately get your reward, and you repeat it. And what happens is that we didn't evolve in life in a delayed return environment. It's where we are right now is all done by immediate return. So you got to be always asking yourself, whatever I'm doing right now, does it have an immediate return? If it doesn't have, then you got to find the version of it that does, right? And what happens is that you want to have these small wins. Is very important. This concept, I think, is one of the most important in this presentation. Small wins. You want to have small wins to keep you on track, okay? Because the feeling of success is that it tells your brain that your habit paid off. And then it makes your brain believe that the effort was worth, the work was worth the effort, right? You want to constantly have that in your brain, that you get this win, you little pleasures, as we had who do we have on the stage? We had Brandon. I think Brandon mentions about the 25 minutes intervals. This is the small win, when especially when it's like you can hear it with an alarm. That gives you dopamine, that gives you pleasure, and that keeps you on track, so you keep doing it. And what I want to mention here that is really important is that the last mile always matters. Is the repetition behavior that takes us to the last mile. And guess what? When you go to the last mile, there's much less competition there, and there are bigger payoffs. So you want to finish, you want to get to that last mile, right? Because not a lot of people have the system, the courage, the motivation to get to the last mile. So when you get there, there's not many people there. So you're going to enjoy your time there. And again, as I mentioned, small wins matter. This is what you have to frame on your wall. Small wins matter. So what can you do about this? We've got a technique called habit tracking. It's very simple. Track your habits, right? Because what happens is that when we operate, we usually think that we're doing much better than we actually doing. Our brain is like kind of like a drama machine that says, "Oh my God, what I'm doing right now is the best." Whatever, it always praises itself, right? So if you start tracking your habits, then you understand completely where you are and how your progress is. And then what happens is that the measurements overcome our blindness, our brain that kind of makes us blind of what we are. And then guess what? When you're tracking your habits, then you're actually creating small wins for yourself. If you have a table, let's say, and you write your habit, take a calendar, okay? Take a big calendar with big boxes and do, if you want to become a reader, again, back to the reader, let's say example, every day that you read one page or one paragraph or whatever you do that your goal is, just put a big ass cross on that day box. Bam, bam. And that gives you so much dopamine in your brain and so much pleasure. That is your small win for the day. And the beauty of that is you actually see the progress. It creates a visual trigger. And every time you look at your habit tracking chart, then it kind of, again, motivates you because you don't want to lose the progress, right? You came so far. I've been doing this for 20 days. I've got a 20-day strike. If I break it for one day, then I lose that and I'm back to square one. So that gives you motivation. It's like, no. I got to read my paragraph today. I got to read my book. And
that's how anonymous alcoholics work, right? They have these badges.
Badges, exactly. This is habit tracking as well. Very simplified version.
It's very powerful as well. Like whenever people give up smoking as well, it works a lot. And for me, if I don't do it for months, I don't want to. It's so valuable for me, this half a year not smoking, that I never want to break it. And it's
exactly, because it's just the motivation. You got to create motivation for yourself. This wasn't full screen. Sorry about that. Much better. Okay, so and what you want to do is just track 1 or 2. If you track 10 habits, then no, that doesn't work because you get overloaded. Track 1, 2, maximum 3 habits if they're simple, and just do those. And when you are 100% sure that things happen automatically, then you can go to another 1, 2, 3 habits. Like there's another problem with the New Year's resolution that happens in January, is that you put down a bunch of goals that you kind of just overload yourself with stuff that you want to do and the habits you want to create. So again, back to habit stacking technique that I said about before. Just put that after your current habit. So put that as a bundle, right? After, when I finish current habit, then I'm gonna track it. So you actually don't forget to do that. And the concept of never missing twice, because missing one time is an accident. It happens a lot of time. Missing twice is actually start of a new habit. So you never want to miss twice, right? If you missed one day, oopsie, that was an accident. If you miss twice, then it's like next time you're gonna miss 3 times. You know what I mean? So make sure that you never miss twice in a row. And what happens is that some people track the wrong things, and that can be very demotivating. Let's say some people want to eat healthy, right? And they start eating healthy food. And how they track their progress is the scale. They go on a scale and they're like, I didn't lose even 1 kilo or 1 pound, right? That's the wrong thing to track, right? So what you want to do is that you got to be tracking other things. Am I breathing better? Am I when I walk, do I feel lighter? Do I feel better when I wake up in the morning? Let's say, is my skin feel better? Is my mood better? Track those instead of tracking your scale and the kilos, because that's the wrong thing to track. Track the correct things. And when you track that, then you get your dopamine rushes all the time. Because imagine you're doing this, I don't know, healthy diet progress for a week, and then you're walking on a street and you're like, oh my God, I feel lighter. Like, let's say George is walking on a street. He loves walking. So he feels lighter and he's like, oh my God, I had some really good progress. And the last thing I want to talk in this part is accountability partner. This is taking it outside your comfort zone. So what we need to understand is the more immediate and costly the mistake is, the faster you will learn from it, right? And referring back to the craving and the triggers and the cultural habits that we talked about, the peer pressure is a massive pressure. It's a big motivator. So you can use that in your life. So again, strength of the punishment is we do habits when the strength of the punishment is bigger than strength of the habit, right? That's where last minute let's say work happens, because you know that tomorrow if you don't get it done, the punishment is much bigger than not doing it today. So you just force yourself to do it the last minute because punishment is bigger. So you can create these punishments yourself. You can create fake punishments. And the way to do that is to create habit contracts, right? You want to create peer pressure for yourself. So what you do, you find one or two accountability partner and you sign up a contract with them, right? You write in the contract, like a proper contract. My name is Hess Adnani, and for the next 3 months, I want to do blah, blah, blah. If I'm not doing blah, 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 then I will pay $50 to person A and $50 to person B, right? And you sign a contract with them. You don't even need to put the amount in there. Just sign a contract with them, and have them sign on the contract too. Because once they sign it, they start asking you, dude, are you following up your habits? Are you on track? Well, how's it going, right? And you don't want to let that down, because that's the peer pressure, and that gets you far ahead.
We have a lot of people sharing different things. If you want to look at the chat.
Okay, let me finish up with a summary because it's finish of it, and then we can get right into Q&A and all that, all right? So let's wrap it up and say what we discussed. 1% better every day. If you see 1% improvement is the arrow on top, and 1% decline is that arrow at the bottom. So you want to ride that hockey stick. Identity. Remember, in order to make changes in your life, you do not try to change the outcomes, you try to change the identity. Instead of saying, I want to run a marathon, you create an identity of a runner. And everything that you do in your life, you're like, is someone that is a runner would do that. Let's say, I don't know, someone offers you a smoke, let's say. You ask yourself, does a runner smoke? Not really. I'm a runner, so I'm not going to smoke. Next one is the habit loop, the cue, the craving, the response, and reward. So basically, for triggers, you make things obvious. For cravings, you make things attractive. For response, you make things easy to do. And for reward, you make things satisfying. Always have these 4 points. How can I make it obvious? How can I make it attractive? How can I make it easy? How can I make it satisfying? Opposite, if you want to break a bad habit, well, make it not obvious. Like the example with the cigarette packs that I gave you earlier. Make it unattractive. Like if you trace back in your brain why you're doing some bad habits and you find that, know the real reason why you're doing it, you can actually make it unattractive. Let's say for smoking, you can say, and also you can use your identity, you can use your identity to make things unattractive. So for smoking, let's say if you want to become a runner, the runner doesn't smoke, a successful person doesn't smoke, a confident person doesn't smoke. So why should I smoke? It's unattractive, right? The response, make it easy. Opposite of that, make it hard, right? Make it really, really hard. And reward, make it satisfying, make it not satisfying. Like when you smoke, focus on an aftertaste, focus on a smell you have on your brain, on your hands. look at other people's faces that they're not, happy with that, and becomes unsatisfying. Peer pressure, you can use that. So through those, we talked about pointing and calling. Basically, when you're being aware of what you're doing during the day, shout out and point at things that you're doing, then track them down in a habit scorecard. Then when you have that, eliminate some bad habits, then attach new habits to the good ones, or attach new habits to the neutral ones, and then adjust your environment for the triggers. Make the triggers that you want to do, the habits you want to do, make the triggers obvious. The ones that you don't want to do, don't make it. Craving. Understand dopamine release. This is not in our control. It's our brain that releases dopamine, and this is how they made lab mouses addicted to cocaine and stuff. Those experiments. It's dopamine. It's all about dopamine. Our brain has three chemicals: dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin, I think, that dictates everything in our life. So understand dopamine. Temptation bundling is attach something that you need to do to something that you want to do. Before checking, when you want to check Instagram, do 10 push-ups, then check Instagram, right? Cultural habits, put yourself in situations and cultural group that people do either what you're doing or who you want to become. They're all there. Go there. And motivation rituals, I forgot to give you my example for that, is every morning after breakfast, I want to start working. So I made this ritual for myself that I want to clean. I'm going to clean my table, which I love cleaning my table because it looks phenomenal after that. I clean my table, and as soon as the cleaning is done, I have, my brain sees no other choice but sit down and work. It's automatic. Then we've got response, number 3, understanding that repetition is what matters, and perfectionism is not the key. You want to make it easy. At the same time, you want to make it hard. And then the 2-minute rule, when you get something started, make sure that your gateway habit only takes 2 minutes to do, and then improve it after that. And number 4 is the reward, which you always want to focus on small wins. You want to track your habits to get the small wins, and then you want to look for an accountability partner. And let me finish it up. That's it. This is the last slide. And what's next? Well, start right now. That's what I do. Whatever you learn, start right away. Don't say, oh, I'm going to do it tomorrow. No. As soon as this presentation is done, start using some of these techniques. I'm going to email you the presentation deck so you have some references. Don't take it personally. This is not our fault. This is how our brain is created. This is how we function. So we do not blame ourselves at all. The thing is, we try to learn and we try to fix. We got to be honest with ourselves sometimes. Does this habit good for me? Is this really what I want to be? You got to do it consciously in anything, not only habit building. Anything that you do, you got to do it consciously. So you got to know what you're doing. You got to be aware of what you're doing. You got to sit back internally to the passenger seat and say, okay, I just got angry at that person for this reason. So when this happened, I got angry because of that occasion. So do everything consciously. Always look, always observe, and be courageous. Accept the challenge, because the first step to level up your consciousness and your vibration on your let's say success in life is courage. Is the time that you say, God damn it, it's so damn hard, but I'm gonna do it. That is the last point I have here. Then we've got recommended books. I recommend you to first read this book. It's amazing. It's called The One Thing. Basically, it teaches you how to find your purpose in life. Then, when you're done with that, read this book, Atomic Habits, which is the book that I kind of summarized and mixed up with other things. Basically, how to implement your purpose. And then, Tim Ferriss, come on. read the 4-Hour Work Week, and it teaches you how to monetize it if you're more into business and monetization. So find your purpose, implement it, and monetize it. Read these books. Let's go to questions, Maria.
There are questions. I ask people to share their little habits, you know, what they do to achieve things, and it was interesting. Some people have very weird things. Like Brandon, he was actually wearing his workout clothes now because it was his workout hour.
Really?
Yes. It was like in that book. He actually mentioned this book in the comments before, that he was reading it now, so it was very interesting for him.
Okay, let's go. Let's go through some people. All right. Tell me, what are there some questions?